Hi there, my name is Kim. This is the Wayrider Chronicles number 9. Today I would like to talk about something called state capture, which I'll define in a minute, in regards to the continent of Africa. State capture came about during the presidency of the then President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, and it was to do with corruption involving mainly, or in majority, state-owned enterprises, which covered electricity generation, railways, port operation, mining, and defense operations. So without going into a lot of details what that was all about, we'll just like to define state capture. State capture means that the people in power, i.e. the politicians and the managers of state enterprises appointed by politicians, essentially use their position of power and influence to siphon off money to themselves and also to other people, i.e. in this case it was this, we can call them a clan, the Gupta clan, who facilitated this siphoning off of money. What we all know that no country is immune from this type of corruption. I live in Switzerland, and this is coming to you from an area of Switzerland which is the Swiss Italian part of Switzerland, and we have had, I would look back on the last year, at least 4 or 5 scandals involving very not to the same extent as that happened in South Africa, but the principle is the same. Somebody in a position of influence and power within a administration that is part of the government structure finds a way to siphon off funds and essentially steal money. The difference being that these are, in most, well not, in a lot of cases, this type of corruption in Western democracies is not minor, but we talk of hundreds of thousands of dollars or francs or whatever, and it's not usually in the millions. I mean, in America they have the same issue, in the UK they have the same issue. There's always, because it's a question of the money doesn't belong to the people and they don't managing it, so they don't have there's a disassociation with the fact of what they're or the type of money they're managing. It's not quite the same as a company, because for whatever reason, so this money belongs to the collectivity. It's money from people's taxes, but it belongs to everybody. But that paradoxically means that it belongs to nobody. So somebody who's quite clever, or not so clever because a lot of them get caught, think that nobody's going to really notice if he slips some of that money into his pocket via whatever means that they dream up. Of course, in this type of corruption has been around since ever there was administrations. But to the extent that it happened in places like South Africa and other African countries, namely, I would also say the country further north, Zimbabwe, is on a much larger scale, where there was literally in South Africa billions of rand. Okay, billions of rand. The rand is, let's say, hundreds of millions of dollars, American dollars, that disappeared, or that was wasted, if you want. wasted. It went in somebody else's pocket, except it wasn't used for its intended purpose. The issue here is not so much that somebody stole the money. The issue is much more, and which is much more, which makes the whole situation much more serious, is that this type of corruption means that the managers and the people who are running these state enterprises don't do their jobs. Their main job is to try and get as much money out of it as possible and appoint other people who are going to be in the same boat with them, who are croonies as they call them, or with them. So eventually what happens is that the enterprise they're running stops functioning because first of all, because money is not being used for its intended purpose. Say, for example, the state electricity supply. So the maintenance of the state grid doesn't take place. So normal maintenance doesn't happen, and you start getting brownouts, or load shedding as they call it in South Africa. But it installs a vertical structure of corruption from the top to the bottom, because if the guy who's fixing the power generators, or whatever you call them, the transformers, if he sees that, and he knows, because everybody knows, that his boss and his boss above him and his area manager and the director are all siphoning off funds, where he thinks, well, I can do the same thing, because they can't say anything, because that's what they're doing. So eventually the whole thing breaks down. So we take that type of corruption, or that type of, I really like the word state capture, because this type of corruption captures the state. But what does it do? It throws into focus another issue, which is immigration. How are the two connected? In Africa, they're very easily connected, because not only South Africa has this state capture corruption issue, but many African countries do. That means that, and this is a theme that I built up before, a lot of these people will see that there's no future in that country. No future, because they can't make ends meet to feed their family and progress in life. So, as I've said before, this type of corruption steals your future. So what do these people do? They try and go to places where they can make more money, and in a much more secure way, which has meant over, and it's not the only factor for immigrations to Europe, but it has meant over the last 10 years or so an acceleration of illegal immigration into Europe via North Africa, into Italy, and then into the rest of Europe, wherever they want to go, when they can get money. This has always been perceived as a big European problem, because the European Union has always taken a sort of benevolent view on it, like a socialist type of view, that we need to help these people. But it got to the stage where they became too many people. But what's happening now is that it's also become an American problem, because we know that the pickup of illegal immigrants via the same routes that the South Americans take, via the Mexico, etc., up to the American border, to the extent that there is, take an example, a West African illegal immigrant problem in New York. And it's exactly the same, for the same reason. There you have a president who's trying to hang on to power for whatever reason. Because he thinks he's a good governor? No, I don't think so. It's because he's been in power for a long time, and he would like to stay there because it's very lucrative to stay in those type of power situations. So what happens to the average Senegalese, as they call them in French? The average Senegalese has gone away, and they've actually found that, actually, why don't we go, instead of going to Europe, let's go to America. So it's a worldwide problem. This link of corruption between state capture by a whole cohort from the president down, or from the ruling elite down, to your average municipal employee who's handing out, I don't know, dustbin collecting, waste collection contracts, looking for a kickback from the company, it prevails through the whole society. This, coupled with the demographics of Africa, which has the fastest growing demographic in the world, means that you have a whole bunch of people, young people, who have no prospects, no future. So what do? They try and leave. Until this rampant state capture changes, it's going to be a perennial problem. And it's quite extraordinary that a lot of, I do not see any serious debate happening in any decent newspaper about the fact that there is an immigration crisis, there is a political crisis, for example, in Senegal, which is going on at the moment, or any other African country. It's always blamed on, oh, the Russians are trying to take over or the jihadists are coming, or this is happening. What is the main issue is that the people in power are allowed to do what the hell they want and take as much money out of the country and essentially deprive their populations of any future prospects. They steal their future. So they go. Why wouldn't you go? What do you need to stay in a country where you're not going to make any money? Or you're never sure that if you do make money, somebody's going to pinch it from you. We need more debate on this state capture story, Africa-wide. This is the Wayrider Chronicles. My name is Kim.